Hey guys, welcome to a classic film review of 1972's Across 110th Street, the gritty tale of a pair of New York City cops on the hunt for a trio of amateur crooks who've gone and ripped off the mob to the tune of $300,000 and inadvertently triggered a war for the streets of Harlem. Now, the two cops here are played by Yaphet Kotto and a really excellent Anthony Quinn, and the film's described as an urban thriller and has elements of racial tension, the morality at play in upholding the law on streets run by gangsters, but it's also straight up one of the best cop movies ever made. Let's take a look. So when a couple of crooks gun down half a dozen guys at a money exchange between the Mafia and some black Harlem mobsters, it's up to a racist cop, played by Anthony Quinn, to investigate. Now, the trouble is, he's getting on a bit, and the politicians are eager to force him to partner up with a black policeman with career prospects, played here by Yaphet Kotto. And the duo needs to shelve their differences in order to apprehend the killers before the mob, Italian and black, get hold of them. You see, the trio of clueless crooks not only have to avoid the law, but also the clutches of the genuinely nasty mobster with a point to prove, DeSalvio, played by Anthony Franciosa, and his opposite number in Harlem, Doc Johnson, played with a raspy menace by Richard Ward.
Hey, DeSalvio!
Yeah?
You ain't never gonna make it, you know that? You were a punk errand boy when you married the boss's daughter, and you're still a punk errand boy.
Now, the problem they have is that one of them has taken it upon himself to take his share of the money and go and live the high life, just jettisoning all ideas of subtlety and keeping a low profile. And this sets about the trio's downfall. And herein is one of my favourite things about 110th Street. You have the official investigation by the police, which is fascinating, and I'll get to it in a moment, but also the unofficial double investigation by the Mafia and the black gangsters. And it's very much evident that their methods of bribery and intimidation and outright torture get the job done a lot faster than the NYPD can manage. You see, Anthony Franciosa's DeSalvio is a true maniac and delivers some of the most shocking moments in the film, glassing people, breaking arms and dropping people off buildings and even castrating the crooks who've wronged him, thankfully off-screen. He's desperately trying to work his way up the ladder of power within his crime family, so he's equal parts driven and outright psychotic.
If you don't tell me who it was, you're gonna make me do something that I don't like. You're gonna make me feel very bad. Do you hear me? You're gonna make me feel very bad. You're not gonna tell me, huh? You're not gonna tell me?
I've got a very quick shout out to Gilbert Lewis's cool cat Chevy, who's a heavy for the Harlem mob. The film's worth watching for his astonishing wardrobe alone. So yeah, we have the two central cop characters here played by Yaphet Kotto and Anthony Quinn. This was just before Kotto would really arrive in the public eye for his turn in the following year's Bond outing, Live and Let Die, playing Mr. Big. And of course he'd be in Alien, Midnight Run, The Running Man. I don't think he ever got to be the movie star that he could have been, but he did do excellent work on the TV show Homicide: Life on the Streets throughout the 90s. But anyway, here he plays the younger, upcoming and by-the-book cop who butts heads with the outdated methods employed by Anthony Quinn.
Are you a cop or one of them social workers?
All right, Captain! Go back to 1940!
Look, the way I work gets results.
I don't hear him saying a goddamn thing.
Quinn's been around the block, and his methods get results, even if they do involve dishing out beatings to his suspects. He knows Kotto's character wants his job and that his days on the force are numbered, but he hasn't got the patience to be all nicey-nicey with the lowlives he's been dealing with for decades.
Stand up, you shine bastard! I'll show you how old I am! Go on, pull it! Pull it, Johnson! Go on! Pull it!
You're crazy, Matilda. You don't want to keep on living.
And the relationship between the pair is obviously the spine of the movie, the classic mismatched cop formula with racist undertones. It's not quite played as hard-hitting as Poitier and Steiger in The Heat of the Night. There's a respect between the two, however subtle, and Quinn might not agree with Kotto's goody two-shoes routine, but he knows that's the future of policing and that eventually he'll have to make way for it.
Well, You really are a racist son of a bitch, aren't you, Matilda?
Will you cut out that racist crap?
Because I'm black. I'm gonna blow the whistle on you, is that it?
You want my job, don't you?
Yes!
Now, Kotto's disdain for Quinn's dishonesty eventually slackens, certainly in a key scene where a mother and a daughter are spared the details of their father's grisly gangland death.
How'd he die?
The fact is that,
It was an automobile accident. Hit and run.
Now, Across 110th Street undoubtedly has a social message running through it. Black men with no education or prospects resorting to robbery and murder to get by. Each one of them has a little issue-filled backstory that we get details of in a few scenes that kind of hold up the action rather than provide any real depth, but that's okay. And there's also some grey area where I feel you're kind of rooting for these guys to get away with it because their crime was perpetrated against more heinous criminals. So 110th Street was adapted from a novel by Wally Ferris, who was a news reporter, I think, by trade, but this was his only book. It brilliantly captures New York City at a pretty bleak time. The 70s and 80s were a period where the city saw just astronomical crime rates. And some of the areas that we see on screen here highlight what is almost abject poverty. Now, the film was directed by Barry Shear, who, I'll be honest, I had to look at his IMDb to see what else he'd done that I might have seen, which was nothing. Lots of TV work and a couple of obscure movies, but here he directs with a gritty, handheld style that's perfect for the material. It all feels very on location and authentic, which is certainly one of the film's strengths. Now, this film turns up in many of the best blaxploitation movie lists. It's often cited as one of the first of its kind, which is a bit odd because I would never put it under the umbrella of films like Foxy Brown and Superfly and Shaft, etc. But I can see why it's there. It has the wardrobes, everyone calling each other brother and cat, and it also has the famous title track by Bobby Womack, which you may recognise from Quentin Tarantino's title sequence to 1997's Jackie Brown. Now, Across 110th Street is an underrated crime thriller from the early 70s, incidentally released in the US in the December of 72, but then worldwide throughout 73. Now, it might not hit the dizzy heights of some of the crime films released around that same time, Dirty Harry, The French Connection, Serpico, but it comes so close. Go check it out.
No, for God's sake!